Yes, Ken Smith Fishing. So this is part 2 of our forward-looking live sonar comparison between the Lowrance product and the Garmin product. Now the Garmin product is called LiveScope. The new Lowrance product is called Active Target. If you were looking at something called LiveSight, that's their predecessor model. We're going to talk specifically today about Active Target. If I make a mistake in this presentation, so by the way, normally these presentations or these videos I do in 2 or 3 or 4 hours. This one's been a couple of weeks, so you're going to see costume changes and probably different levels of shaving and hair growth, because as we've done this, we've gone down some rabbit holes and we thought, oh, well, that's interesting. Let's scope that out, or let's talk about that. So this is, and so if you hear me refer to the Lowrance by the wrong name, not Active Target, I am talking about Active Target. It's just a mistake that I didn't catch in the editing. So this actually is a replacement of a intro I had already shot. So that's the first part. Here's the rest of it. So it's the Garmin product versus the new Lowrance product. And in the first part of this, I compared basically the forward-looking technology, and now we're going to cover the Scout technology, or the perspective is how they the two different terminologies. So Scout terminology is the shallow beam looking forward for the Lowrance, and perspective is for the Garmin. So if you haven't seen part 1, I'll put a link to it right there above. I would suggest you watch part 1 first, because we do some level set on cone angles and some other things that will probably help you understand this video a little bit as well. And I also have to give one more shout out. So in the first video, I mentioned that an engineer friend helped me with, and actually it's funny, I've never met him, but an engineer friend that is a subscriber that I've gotten to know by talking through email. And by the way, if you guys want to talk, I'm KenSmithFishingAndOutlook.com, and I respond to all my emails. I'm pretty good at Facebook, but I respond to all my emails. And in the first video, I shared with him an early version of that, and he said, oh, you can use my name. And his name's Walton, by the way. And I posted in that first video this picture of an engineer. I found it online. I thought it was hysterical. My dad looked a whole lot like that and carried a slide rule. And my dad worked for the FAA. He was a radar technician, but very much kind of electrical engineer mindset. And Walton chuckled at the picture, and he said, well, that's pretty doggone accurate. And he sent me this picture. And I just love that. It's so beautiful. So that is from 1969. So Walton, like I have been, I was fishing in my grandmother's ponds in about 1969. So I love that picture. That is awesome. Everything about that. And I love how much that looks like the other picture. So this is part 2. I hope you guys enjoy this. I've enjoyed doing it, and I got something really crazy cool coming to you guys real soon, talking with the Mercury Racing guys. It's going to take me a few weeks to get it done, but it's cool stuff. So stick around, check it out, guys. Now, the other thing, so that's that forward imaging, right? But they also have a 135-degree cone on the linear axis, I guess is the way to say that, and I'm sure somebody will correct me on that. So the more I watch stuff, so if you go back in a video a couple of weeks ago, I caught some fish that I passed over and I threw back over the motor with an A-rig and doubled a pair of 3-pounders, and then I caught a 2.5-pounder because I saw them feeding under the boat. So that 135-degree cone angle means this. Now, interestingly, well, I'll come back to that. So the 90 degrees in front would be from dead level set of where you have that transducer looking forward to 90 degrees straight down, right? It's a quarter of a 360-degree pie, if you think about it that way. And this would be 180 degrees, right? It would be the entire bottom half of that pie is what you'd be seeing. And really what you're getting here is you're getting about 135 degrees. And if you look at that, according to the depth you're fishing in, you're seeing a whole bunch of stuff that you already have passed over. And you will see guys who use this technology a lot either turn around and throw behind the boat or back away from it, which when you flip it around, you're actually, if you're backing straight away from something, it's funny, it immediately flips it and you can still see whatever you're looking at under the boat now, which would be back in front of the boat because you've spun your transducer around. That's probably confusing, but you'll get it as you play with these more. But you got to realize how much of what you're looking at from straight down the trolling motor back, there's a lot of water that you could see stuff in this forward imaging mode. Okay, so some more math from Walton, so it makes perfect sense if you think about this. So when you are looking at that 135-degree cone, you're looking at basically dead level from wherever you have your transducer set pointing forward, which in my boat's about that far down the trolling motor shaft. So let's say it's probably a foot under the water. So I'm seeing from a foot under the water to directly below the water. That's the first 90 degrees. And by the way, so the distance is basically infinite, right? As far as I've got enough power to look forward, because I'm looking at the level of water till it hits the bank or hits China or wherever. However, that back half of that 45-degree angle is actually a perfect 1-to-1 ratio. So said another way, because it's a 45-degree angle going backwards, if you're setting in 30 feet of water, you would be able to see 30 feet behind you. If you're setting in 50 feet of water, you'd be able to look 50 feet behind you. Now, I think when they designed these systems, they realized that could potentially be an issue, because now if you're trying to look, well, you've only got an infinite amount of screen space, right, as illustrated right here. So what you see there is they have limited how much you can look behind you. I can't find it on the Garmin unit, and I don't believe it's on the Lowrance unit either, because I've not seen anybody talk about it. So it looks like there is some limitation to how far you can see behind the boat. But as you see in this screenshot right here, I'm in a 21-foot boat. So if I can see 20 plus feet behind my trolling motor, I'm actually seeing what is coming out from behind the motor at the back of my boat. So I just wanted to clarify that. It's interesting, at a 45-degree angle, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. You can see back as far as your depth if that allowed it to go all the way back. But you see that line, that top of that beam, if you will, goes off it would be the left side of that image from the unit. That's because they don't go all the way back as far as it possibly could. I don't think there's a way to change that. If there is, guys, that's what the comments are made for. Please comment. And once I see those comments, I'll figure out how to do it, and I'll show you guys as well. But I don't think you can. So, again, another one of those cutaways as we did this that we found interesting. So both of these are on that same 135-degree cone, and it makes a little bit more difference, I think, if you go to perspective or scout mode. Now, for both of these units, you have to buy, and I say that, with Garmin, you have to buy a separate, what they call perspective mount for your transducer. I would assume it's the same for Lowrance. I'm sorry I didn't research that. On the left is the Lowrance, the way you can mount the Lowrances, and on the right is the way you can mount the Garmins. I'm going to pay attention to the Garmin because I think it's a little easier in this scenario to see. So if you're going to have the perspective mode, you see, and actually you can see it better if you look at the port side picture on the left here at the bottom. That's the Lowrance. Again, they're incredibly similar technologies and mounts and everything. But basically what happens is when that is mounted this way, you're shooting forward imaging. And if you want to shoot what they call scout mode, what Garmin calls perspective mode, you actually have to reach down with your hand and flip that transducer on its side, and then you tell the unit, I'm switching it to perspective and or scout mode. I say that again, I'm not sure that you have to tell the Lowrance unit, but I suspect you do. And what I will tell you is where I fish. Rayburn, around a lot of grass, not a lot of shallow cranking, not a lot of shallow boat dock fishing. I have found the perspective mode useless. And I will also tell you, well, I'll come back to that. It's also a pain trying to put your boat cover on. It also, so you tighten that perspective mount with the Allen wrench, and it will move, as you can imagine how much rattle there is on the front of your boat. It loosens up. You'll get grass around it. You bump into a tree, it'll turn that thing. You'll know because immediately your forward imaging isn't looking right. But I have become less and less of a fan of the perspective mode. Now, I got it on my first boat because I wanted to see the perspective mode, and I will buy the perspective mount for my second boat. But I'm going to change up how I'm mounting mine to what you see at the top right picture here, which is the Garmin mount. I'm mount it directly to the side of my trolling motor. Now, that takes out the ability to use the perspective mode, but it makes it much, much more stable. Okay. One other thought for you guys who are in the process of buying a boat. And again, I'm pretty agnostic about trolling motors too. I don't have a sponsor. I think it's easier, and guys have agreed with me that it's easier to see where you're facing your transducer with a Minn Kota Ultrex head, because the entire head pivots, versus on the Garmin or on the Lowrance trolling motor where all you have is an arrow. You've got to look down and really pay attention to that arrow, and you can almost see you can see the head of your Ultrex kind of out of the side of your eye. You don't have to really pay that close of attention to it. It may not mean that much to you, but again, and I'm amazed how many guys buy this stuff, whether it's a boat or a trolling motor or whatever, without going out and experiencing it. I would go out, if you got buddies, and fish with one of these units. Try to fish with both, but certainly with different trolling motors, to make sure that you're comfortable with one where you're just using the arrows versus one where you can see that entire Ultrex head of the trolling motor pivot as your fish. And I said this earlier, so two things. If you're buying a new boat, make dang sure. It's important if you buy one of these live units. It's incredibly important if you buy a 360 unit, because remember that 360 transducer sticks up 6-8 inches above the trolling motor shaft. Make dang sure when they cut your cover, when they make the cover for your boat, that they know that if you don't have it installed at the factory, that they know what you're going to put on this boat before you order that boat and boat cover. And also know, if you buy the perspective mode and you have an existing boat cover, it's probably not going to fit. If you go to that mount at the top right, you probably have a much better chance of this fitting right. But I noticed my buddy Chris Jones came down here last year, and he actually had to remount his transducer and flip how he stows his trolling motor to get his boat cover to even closely fit. So it's just something to think about before you buy a new boat cover or a new boat with a boat cover. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about, I've already said I'm not a big fan, based on where I fish, on the perspective / scout mode. But this is what that cone looks like. So now you've taken that elongated cone and you flipped it on its side. And here's my point on this one, just as something of sort of a frame of reference to think about. So I've drawn a line here, and by the way, interestingly, I've drawn a line on what I would perceive to be the water line on my boat here with my 300R on it. And what you'll note here is, they actually, and you could even see the level line of the boat versus the trolling motor, they've actually tilted that trolling motor back under the boat a little bit. And some boats do that, and if you go back in our Great Bass Boat search, one of the boat manufacturers, I wish I could remember which one it was, may have been a Bass Cat actually, they had put a fiberglass lip to bring that, because they sloped the front of that nose, to bring the front of that nose back up where you mount your trolling motor, so that it was square, so that it was perpendicular to your line of travel. And I just say that because if that's the case, if you have a trolling motor that is straight up and down, if you will, what you're really shooting is, you're shooting in the traditional forward mode, you're shooting straight in front of the boat to 135 back. When you flip this, you're now shooting a much brighter, wider, but a much narrower cone, and you're really shooting from just below the surface of the water down to some number. So again, 18 or 20 degree cone angle looking forward really is not getting a huge slice of the water unless you're pretty shallow, which is again why most guys will tell you perspective mode is only good in shallow water. So again, if we kind of use Texman's chart back there, 30 feet in front of the trolling motor, we're only seeing, if you're in 30 feet of water, or it doesn't matter how much water you're in, at 30 feet, you're only seeing a tiny sliver of the water. And the closer in you go, I mean, you could go backwards with the math, right? If you're only looking 20 feet out in front of the boat, you're only covering 6.5 to 7 feet of water. If you're looking at 10 feet in front of the boat, you're only looking at 3 feet of water in front of the boat, because you're further into that cone. Now, when you get way out there, 80, 90, 100 feet, you're looking at a pretty good subsection of the water column, if you will. But it's just something to think about to help you process and interpret what you're seeing when you're in that scout or that perspective mode. I will suggest again to you, well, sort of in summary, I don't think there's a huge difference in these two units. And again, I've watched a bunch of videos other guys have done online, and it seems like in every case, whoever's sponsoring them, that's who they think is the best unit. I don't think there's a significant difference. I would suggest you pay attention to your head unit you're using. Now, I use the 1200 series Garmin, and I think I get a great view of what's in front of me. I would again suggest to you make a couple of phone calls trying to get customer service from these two companies. I personally think that's going to steer your buying decision some, because look, they all make a pretty good product, but you got to have customer service to back that up. And I was way less than impressed with one of these companies' customer service. And then based upon where you fish and how you fish, I think dictates whether you really want to have that perspective mode. By the way, if you don't mount yours perspective, it's super simple to do. It's 2 Allen screws that you just mount that little bracket to your trolling motor. So if I had a tournament and I needed to go back over to the Red River in Louisiana, and I really wanted to have the perspective mode to look down rocks or look around, cypress trees or whatever else, it would take me 10 minutes at the most to add that perspective mode. But it is, for me at least, a bit of a pain in the butt to fish with every day. It does get bumped around. It does loosen up. I personally think I'm interested to remount my next boat on the side of the trolling motor. I think it'll be simpler, and I think my boat cover is going to fit a lot better too. So that's my take. There's not a big aha here, which maybe in and of itself is a big aha, right? There's not a huge difference that I can find technically in the difference in these two units. If you guys have something to add or questions, please put them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this is a little bit different than some of the stuff I've done. I enjoy doing this kind of stuff, as you can tell. Again, comments below are appreciated. Suggestions for future videos are always appreciated. This video came from me talking with TexMan. It was kind of my idea, and he helped me expand on it. And I learned a lot, and I hope you guys did too. So thanks for tuning in. More videos coming out. We post every Tuesday and Thursday. If you don't subscribe, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and every time I post a new video, you'll get a notification and get a chance to watch them. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see y'all soon.